Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. With 3.22 no longer under NDA, we can talk about the new structural salvage, but unfortunately, the particle effects and other features are not in the game, so it isn't really much to look at. CIG, particularly Savaris, has been forthright in describing the state of the implementation as being limited and rushed in order to complete it before the holidays, and I commend their honesty, but it seems like with both the last release and with this one, CIG was left with a difficult choice. In order to get the increased testing loads they needed, they had to make public a build that was not yet ready for public consumption, and so with it came a lot of very public criticism. So I'm going to segue from this main discussion to suggest that CIG make a change, and that change is to make Evocati larger and possibly two-tier. Yes, I know there'd be a nuisance in overhead with processing more NDAs, but without it, you can expect that every not ready for prime time test release is going to be streamed to thousands within minutes. You can even, if you wish, create a two-tier Evocati, for which there is a precedent. At times in the past, there was an Evocati Strike Group, ESG, that was a subset of the Evocati Test Flight, or ETF, and I suspect that the structure for doing that still exists. Returning to the main topic with the recent introduction of the SRV in 3.21.1 and this new structural salvage in 3.22, there now seems to be an opportunity for a team of organized players to create potentially a very profitable cooperative multiplayer process. In other words, a good old-fashioned chop shop, whether legal or illegal or a bit of both. So I'm going to talk about how you might set such a chop shop team up. Because this whole concept of having an end-to-end process where different parts of the team in specialized ships for their roles work together as a process to maintain a continuous flow of profit is sort of new. And this is perhaps where managing a stationary flow of process is different than managing a single multiplayer ship. With a single ship, you're interested in maximizing profit per hour or minute on that ship. With a larger process, you're looking at keeping everyone productive, even if some parts of the process are more profitable than others. So, for example, some people are suggesting now that the reclaimer, thanks to the buffers and larger output crates, is soloable. And it is. But when running a chop shop, that logic does not apply, because it means that when the solo operator moves to the loader, the scraper and grinder operations halt, and the backlog of ships ready for scraping and grinding backs up. So other people start to get idle. So it makes sense to have a full-time loadmaster on the reclaimer because it keeps the profitable part, the scraping and grinding, running constantly. Similarly, with a single ship reclaimer mindset, you might be tempted to go straight to the grinding, since, at least until it gets rebalanced, structural salvage is very profitable, much like people previously were taking salvage missions and only taking the cargo. But the structural salvage in a chop shop is finito. Once the grinding is done, the other crews can't go back and still do component salvage or hull scraping. They're idle, and because you're going through the wrecks much faster, you will have to dedicate more players to towing the refreshed wrecks. And the towing is overhead, not directly profitable, but necessary. So with that discussion of the mindset, let's get to thinking about the actual chop shop team. I would organize a chop shop team into 4 sub-teams. The first are the pullers. They go out in SRVs and be the tow truck drivers. Their goal is to create a steady supply of ships lined up for the chop shop. And I mean that literally. Since the derelicts can't move on their own, for the SRVs, their orders will be to just leave them in a straight line. And then the process team moves along that line. So where will the pullers be pulling from? Well, the white hat pullers will be pulling from legal salvage missions, but also maintaining contacts with anybody doing bounty hunting or combat assistance beacons on the shard, since those create a steady flow of wrecks, although not many of them with cargo. But as they move up to HRT and ERT levels, they will be creating some very large and very valuable wrecks on a steady basis. With black hat chop shops, the pullers will be taking from the illegal salvage missions and, quite notably, teaming with providing cleanup for pirate orgs. If I know anything about a pirate org mindset, is that they would find it more emotionally and financially satisfying if they would sell a pirated wreck for a third of what could really be gained from it, and then to rush off to create 3 times as many pirated wrecks per hour. At the chop shop itself, the first team is the pickers. They'll be going EVA with hand and shoulder tractor beams to first grab any salvageable cargo crates, followed by any salvage components, and then every valuable gun, missile, and weapon. Now, when everything is worked out, I suspect that part of the picker's job will be to box up as many of those smaller components, guns, etc., into these new 2 SCU containers. But at least as of the moment, I've been having trouble getting those to work for holding ship components, but that might be something I'm just doing wrong, or that will soon be fixed. When the pickers are done to their satisfaction, they move ahead down the line and the processors move in behind them to do the scraping and grinding. This I would normally expect to be a single reclaimer, but I presume a group of vultures could also satisfy this role. As I said before, you would certainly want the reclaimer to have a dedicated loadmaster so that the scraping and grinding can continue unabated. The fourth group I call the packers. These are large cargo ships with easy loading and able to land on planets where a lot of the no questions asked sales points are going to be. So the 2 major contenders for this role are the Caterpillar, which has a slight advantage in terms of ease of loading, and the Hercules, which has a slight advantage in capacity. I see these working as each picker would stay close to the pullers, taking the salvage cargo and components until the processor says that they have enough hull metal and construction materials to complete a full load for them. Then they move over to the processor, fill up their hold, and be off. Meanwhile, the next in the packers is now taking their place picking up components. I suspect that you will need at least 3 large cargo ships in rotation to keep goods from piling up. The final question is whether there will need to be a 5th group, in addition to the pullers, pickers, processors, and packers. The protection. Well, I think yes, but not for the chop shop itself. As I see it, the chop shop could be set up anywhere in space, although logically you would place it within reasonable travel distance of the places where you would be selling at. But when those laden Caterpillars and Hercules are pulling up to places like Rios, that's when they're vulnerable, and thus that is where the protection is most needed. So I suspect that being protection for a salvage operation won't be standing guard so much as being the advance team that checks the safety of the zone before the arrival of the cargo ship and stays there until after the sale is completed. So that would be the signature of a well-managed chop shop operation. Everybody is constantly producing, everything is constantly moving. How large of a group would I think it takes? Well, some quick scratchpad math would say between 12 and 24 players, but not more, because otherwise you'd be too dominating on the shard, and you still want to have some players out there making those wrecks, right? And finally, an update on our giveaways. As of recording, we're at 89% of our subscriber goal and 78% of our membership goal. We give one lucky winner the Zippy Zazzy Zaftig Zephyr Zeus 2. Plus, beyond that, 58% of our membership goal and 66% of the subscriber goal for the massive multiplayer, multi-role mining meta, the Arasta. 1 entry per video, just be a member and be entered automatically, or subscribe and comment somehow including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is any of the names of the 5 sub-teams on the Chop Shop. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.